Hello, scholars. How are you? It's great to see you. I didn't blog last week, and I'm going to tell you why here in just a second. And then I'm going to follow that with my top 3 suggestions for success in college. But first, please do me a favor and subscribe to my channel. Click like on the Facebook post, do all of the fun little subscribey, sharey things that you do because it helps me to get exposure, and I'm trying to gain some followers on APA. So I really appreciate it. The other thing that I would love for you to do is to go down into the comments wherever you're viewing this, or tweet at me if you're seeing it on Twitter, and tell me what you would like to see more of on APA. Do you like the APA tips specifically? Do you like just generic scholarly writing stuff, editing, proofreading? Do you like college tips? Like, what's your jam? Okay, so I'm sorry I didn't post last week. You may or may not know that I am a faculty member at a number of different higher educational institutions, and this is back to school time. So you probably also have been going back to school and getting your classes together, meeting new friends, and it's just been crazy town. Of course, the first couple of weeks of any semester are always a little nuts. I thought I would help you out with a post this week about my top 3 favorite tips for surviving college. Now, I've been doing school for a long time, and these tips don't necessarily have to even be about college. They can help you survive also in high school, if you happen to be a high school student who's watching this. But I started as a teacher probably in 2002, and before that I was a college student for a number of years and a high school student for 4 years. And I feel like in all of the years that I've had experience in secondary and higher education, there's just this common theme of about 3 things that seem to make or break whether or not a student is successful in their classes. So the very first thing that is my favorite tip for you, it's the top number 1 thing, is to make organization your hobby. You need to be organized, especially if you are juggling lots and lots of stuff in your life. So maybe you're taking a couple of classes, but you also work full-time and you also have a family. Oh, and you also have this side gig that you do. There is absolutely no way that your head will be able to maintain and remember all of the different specific dates associated with everything going on in your life unless you have a system or a method of organization. Now, there are a few rare people that it's all up here and that works fine for them, but I would say that most people, that is not going to be enough. You're going to need to come up with some kind of a system for organization. I personally like to use a planner. I have an Erin Condren planner that I get a new one every year, and then I spend some time sitting down with the planner and writing in people's birthdays and stuff that happens every year. And then whenever it's time for a new semester, I will go into my classes. On the very first day, I have access to the classes, and I will open up the syllabus and the course calendars, and I will write down every single due date. Then I take an additional step, and I will say beyond the due dates, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the course readings and the things that are required of me in the course as far as knowledge goes, and I'm going to schedule time for working on that class. The typical amount of time that people would put aside for studying would be about 3 hours per week for every credit hour that you're taking. So if you take a 3 credit hour class, that means you need to find 9 hours in your week to study for that class. That's a lot of time, especially if you're somebody who's like a super person and you're taking lots and lots of overload, 5 classes at once or something crazy like that. You're going to really need to be very selfish with your study time and figure out how you're going to fit all that in. You may have to make some compromises. You may have to take that down to 2 hours per credit hour, something like that. You might also consider like group study time, or if you're working in a lab or on some projects, incorporate that into the planned time that you have. But you need to be sitting somewhere actually devoting time to learning that subject for that amount of time. 3 hours for every credit hour that you're taking. Okay, so that's also also going to go in your planner. I have been doing this for years, and I have found that I have gotten the maximum value out of my education just by doing that one thing. The second tip I have for you is to become buddies with your professor. Now, I don't mean to cross that professional boundary line and to become BFFs. That would not be appropriate. What I mean when I say buddies is that what you need to do is to really put your face in front of that professor's face outside of just the time that you're sitting in the classroom. That means that, you're going to maybe go visit them during their office hours. Show up to class early and talk to them on a personal level a few minutes before class starts. Share something about yourself with them. Hey, I have a spouse and they're interested in what blah blah blah, and I noticed that you're interested in blah blah blah. Or stay after class even and ask them some engaging questions about the material. Hey, during class today you were talking about the court case of blah 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 blah. I found that really interesting. Do you have any more information you didn't share with us on that topic? Those are the kinds of things that will put your face in the professor's mind, because remember, we have hundreds and hundreds of students every semester. It's so hard to keep everybody straight. And so just that little bit of personalization will help me remember you when I'm grading or when I'm entering grades or whatever. And it might make the difference between me saying, oh gosh, Sarah, is not doing well in this class. Maybe I should reach out to her. Versus maybe another student who would be a little bit more anonymous, who I might not think to do that kind of thing with because they didn't stick out in my head. So really, really take advantage of your professor's office hours. I always tell my students to communicate with me early and often. So that means that if something is going wrong in your life, you need to send me a message or get in touch with me early before it happens, like preferably before it happens. So if you're pregnant and you're going to have a baby next month, maybe that's some information you should be sharing with me rather than waiting until you have the baby and then you can't turn anything in for a couple of weeks because there was complications, and then it's 2 weeks later and I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. That creates a problem. So make sure that you are communicating with your professor early, and then also often. My students who don't pass my classes tend to be the ones who I have chased around a little bit to try to find them, and why aren't you logging in and why aren't you turning your stuff in? And then when they stop, like when they're just ignoring me and not paying attention to my reaching out to them, I stop reaching out. Those are the students who sort of fall off the map and they're not successful. So if your professor sends you an email, respond. It's only polite. The third tip that I have for you is to network. Reach out to your peer group, make friends. I just read a Reddit thread today. I was so frustrated because somebody got on there and they were complaining that every single class that they go to, the teachers make them do these silly introduction games and icebreakers. Like they have to stand up and say something silly about themselves or whatever. And they're complaining. And in the comments of the Reddit thread, I know, never read the comments, but in the comments of the Reddit thread, everybody was like, oh my gosh, I hate that, and I'm having the exact same experience, and I'm not here to make friends. I'm only here to learn. I don't want to talk to other people in my class. I don't want anybody else to look at me while I'm in class. Well, I have to say, I think that's kind of a bad attitude. You are paying not just for the class and for the learning, but you're also paying for the opportunity to meet other peers who are going to be in your field, in your community. And so often as you're becoming as you kind of become an adult, but as you grow into your career field, you're going to end up working alongside a ton of people who you will then know from college. So it is really, really important that you do get to know people at every opportunity that's given to you in college. You never know where those friendships are going to get you. Your peers are also going to be a really big help to you down the road. For example, if you have an assignment that you just are really stuck on, but it's the weekend and the professor's not answering your messages, you can reach out to those peers and maybe they will have thought of something that you didn't think of. Or they may have even met with the professor earlier in the week and they can say, hey, yeah, they gave me this resource. This works great. The other last comment I had on that one little Reddit thread is that often those icebreakers are not for you all. They're for us because, again, with the 100 students a semester, it's tough. And so we want to personalize your experience. We want to make classes fun for you, and we want to know who you are. And so those icebreakers actually help your professors more than you know. So those are my 3 suggestions. Number 1 is to make being organized your hobby. Number 2 is to be a buddy to your professor. And number 3 is to reach out to your peer group. What do you think of those suggestions? Do you have any different ones or any that I can add on? Did you disagree with anything I said? Add a little comment or at me on social media and let me know what you thought. And I'd love to hear your suggestions for other blogs. Hey, have a great fall. I'm going to get back into doing this once a week. Last week I had to miss because I was busy, but you can watch for another post next week. We'll see you then. Bye.